Perspective is a visual formula. It gives us a process to follow so we can draw things the way our eyes or a camera would see it. If you want to draw something that has form, which is pretty much everything, the principles of perspective will make it look like it has form, like it's sitting in a space. It will make it look good. Whether you do realism, semi-realism, anime, or even cartoons, basic perspective principles will be present. So to understand perspective, we have to learn the ins and outs of this formula. Just kidding. It's fairly simple. There's a few things involved. There's always a horizon line, or more accurately, an eye level line, and points that will appear on this line called vanishing points. I will explain all of this. Let's look at the horizon line, or the eye level line first. This is the line that you see at the beach, between the water and the sky. This also indicates the height level of your eyes, hence why we call it the eye level line as well. This is important to know because sometimes there is no horizon, understood as a line between the ground and the sky, like in outer space, where there is no ground or sky. But we still need a line to draw objects accurately in the scene. We need it because a characteristic of this line is that everything drawn above it we are looking up at, and everything drawn below it we are looking down at. And the position of this line on the page decides the angle at which we look into the scene. So let's look at the box in perspective. To draw it, we can draw the rectangle part of it. But how do we determine how to draw these lines? This is where those points on the horizon line come in, the vanishing points. A vanishing point is where parallel lines which are going away from us, that are seen from an angle, seem to converge to and meet at if we were to extend them to infinity. Also to note, these lines have to be parallel to flat ground. If they are tilted, it's going to be different, which I will also explain later. For now, let's keep it simple. Flat ground, an object sitting properly on it. For another example, let's look at the classic railroad picture. We know that these lines in the railroad are perfectly parallel, and they have to be. A train is not very flexible. It's not going to be able to adjust to deviations in the railroad. And we can see that these lines converge and meet at this point on the horizon line. That is the vanishing point. Why does this happen? Well, optic and eye science explains it in detail, but in short, we have a cone of vision which extends pretty much to infinity, and this cone represents everything that we can see when we look in a direction. As you can see, the further this cone extends, the bigger it gets, and the more it encompasses. If we place two objects of the same size inside it, but at different distances, we can see that the further it gets, the less space it occupies in this cone. Therefore, it occupies less space in our vision, seeming smaller. And if we were to draw lines connecting from the corners of one to the other, in perspective we would see them converging. First, we will look at the one-point perspective. We've seen the railroad example. This picture is in one-point perspective, because there is one vanishing point. Every line here seems to converge to this one point, near the middle. Let's draw a box using one-point perspective. First, we always start by putting down the horizon line. We then establish the vanishing point, somewhere near the middle. We then draw a rectangle, and from its corners, we draw lines to the vanishing point. Having these lines placed down, then we can make another rectangle that sits between these lines to give it the backside. The further back you put this rectangle, the longer the box is. Let's do a couple more of these boxes. You can start with any side of them, it doesn't really matter. The front side is probably the easiest because you just draw a rectangle and connect the corners to the vanishing point, and you draw another rectangle. I will show you how to draw other objects and other forms at a later point. Also, notice that the only lines going to the vanishing point are the ones going away from us. Horizontals and verticals are unaffected. We mostly use one-point perspective when we're facing an object more or less directly. If the box, for example, is too much to the left or the right, it gets distorted because it's outside of our cone of vision. It's also distorted because we see a lot of its side, but the front part is drawn as if we were facing it directly. So usually, to see more the side of an object, we use the most commonly used perspective, which is the two-point perspective. So, two-point perspective. We use this when objects are more rotated, so we see their sides, as I mentioned, and it's called two-point perspective because it has two vanishing points. Let's draw a box in this perspective to see how it works. First, we always draw the horizon line. Then we establish the vanishing points, which I will put at the edge of the paper. We then can place the front edge of the box and draw the lines from the corners to both vanishing points. Then between these lines, we draw vertical lines, which then we connect to the vanishing points again. Let's draw another one, this time above the horizon line, which will make it look like we're looking up at it. In the same process, place down the front edge of the box, connect the ends of this line to the vanishing points. Then draw verticals between these lines and connect their ends to the vanishing points as well. Let's draw a couple more boxes. Also make sure not to put the vanishing points too close to each other, as this will result in distorted drawings. To practice, you should keep them at the edge of the paper, and for the best results, have them off of the page even, so you don't even see them. This would be a natural distance ratio, and the purple rectangle representing the page you're drawing on. If the drawing feels off, like the corners are way too sharp, then make the distance between the vanishing points bigger. Let's take a look at 3-point perspective. You can guess by now, it's called like that because it has 3 vanishing points. This one is pretty much like 2-point perspective, except the third one is way above or way below the horizon line near the middle. This vanishing point is going to affect the vertical lines. Let's make a box, starting out with the horizon line as always. Then we place the vanishing points. The third one usually is way off the page, as you can see in this example. Then I place down the vertical edges which go towards the third vanishing point. First I draw 2 lines to the left and right vanishing points, and I complete the box by drawing each edge to its corresponding vanishing point. If I were to zoom out enough to see all the vanishing points, it would look like this. Let's look at an assignment if you want to practice perspective. Try to draw your room, or your dream room, or any room for that matter. First, draw the room itself and place objects inside it. You can keep them simple, represented as boxes of various sizes. If it's too hard, this way you don't have to worry about drawing a complex or rounded object. But if you want, you can also add the details and complexities that make the objects more recognizable and lively. I will show you how to draw various other objects and forms besides the box in future videos, but for now we're keeping it simple so that we develop a sense of space and depth. Start by drawing the room in 1-point perspective, and when you feel like you understand it, you can easily decorate a room, organize a room, then move up to 2-point perspective, do the same with that, and then finally move up to 3-point perspective. So practice these, make a lot of them so you develop a sense of how things look in 3D space and how they are drawn, and how it feels to draw them in a 3D space. And you will eventually be able to draw something in perspective more intuitively without needing to take your ruler out and set your vanishing points up and all that technical jazz. Keep the basic principles in mind, and for now, have fun, press like if you like, subscribe if you want to, and have a fantastic day. A big shout out to my Patreon Navani Art. Your support is immensely appreciated. If you want to support or if you want to learn art, the link is in the description.